Can you please clear my doubt, sir? Sure, proceed with it. Windows, Mac and Linux, which is best, sir? Let's watch from the tech umbrella.
Which operating system is the best? The simplest questions always need the longest answers. The question that will no doubt rumble on through the ages of PC users, gamers, content creators and various professionals. Which is better? Windows, Mac or Linux? Rule number 1. This is not a bashing contest. Let's start with Windows. The most widely used OS with a user percentage of about 90%. Windows was first released in 1985. It was supposed to be a graphical user interface on top of MS-DOS. It was the first introduced version. When it comes to the risk of malware, Windows is the most prone. This is due to a larger user base. Windows follows a directory structure to store the different kinds of files of the user. It has logical drives and cabinet drawers. It also has folders. Some common folders like documents, pictures, music, videos, and downloads. All these files can be stored in these folders, and also new folders can be created. It also has files which can be a spreadsheet or an application program. It can have extensions as .txt, .jpg, etc. When you think of Windows software options, you should picture an American grocery store. A staggering abundance of options for just about everything you may ordinarily wish to make, but plenty of redundancy and junk food in the mix. Other miscellaneous features that come with Windows include smart assistants. These are becoming more and more a part of our lives, with not only Apple and Microsoft, but also Google and Amazon getting in on the fun. Cortana, the Microsoft's assistant, tends to be the most consistent with users. Dark mode. For someone who spends far too much time looking at a screen, a good dark mode. Next on our list is Mac with a user base percentage of 7%. For Apple's part, OS X has gone on from strength to strength. It is used in every main hardware product that Apple makes. For this comparison, we'll be looking at what is now called Mac OS. This operating system from Apple stands older than Windows. It was first released in 1984. It began as a graphical user interface right from its inception. In 2005, the design and structure of Mac OS were changed to Intel x86-based architecture. If you have a Mac, you don't need security. This was a belief of many for a long time in the industry. There is some truth to this, but it's mainly because of the market share note above. Put simply, there are far fewer computers running Mac OS, so there are less threats out there for it, malicious software. And various scams tend to target the largest potential user base. Like any piece of mass marketing, the default is going for the largest impact. So, for the hackers out there, that means targeting Windows systems. However, because of the belief that a Mac doesn't need security, this has also left them potentially more vulnerable. Mac is costlier than Windows, and the user is forced to buy a Mac system built by Apple. The file structure of Mac is commonly known as Mac OS X. If you go to dig into your Mac's hard disk through Finder, you will see many directories. The root directory of Mac may encounter when they visit their own MacBook. You can explore the file system and directory structure by going to directories like Application, Developer, Spin, TMP, etc. The ecosystem. Ecosystem is the one word you'll hear whenever looking into Apple software. Everything from Apple's phones to tablets to PCs are all kept within the singular Apple ecosystem, which is their exclusive, tightly controlled family of software, including their operating system, group of standard programs, and their suite of professional-grade software. That will so often be the biggest strength and weakness of Apple, depending on who you speak to. Smart Assistant Siri, Apple's assistant, has the most consistent experience, though, for those using it, as it's the same across all devices, the ecosystem, which is a huge bonus. Dark mode. Apple have Windows beat here, thanks to the uniform install setup, so when they included a dark mode with Mojave, it became damn near uniform across the board. Very handy. Linux is the least used operating system, with users accounting for 1%. It was initially developed in Finnish University. It was released in 1991 and designed for GNU developers. GNU developers later integrated it into Linux. It is open to consumers and everyone can use as per their specifications. Linux is very unlikely to be affected by malware. Linux is the most secure OS because its source is open. Anyone can review it and make sure there are no bugs or backdoors. However, for an average, non-corporate non-server user, Linux might seem too complex to use, or at least set up correctly. Linux is free and anyone can download and use it. Linux has a completely different file structure from Windows and Mac. It was developed with a different code base. It stores data in the form of a tree. There is a single file tree and all your drives are mounted over this tree. GNU or Linux is quite good in regards to the notion of uniform design, as most of the main branches have standardized install setups. Nested launchers and other sources of redundant design are simply not allowed unless they can be shown to provide additional functionality, example using Wine to run Windows programs on Linux. The real downside for Linux in this category is a smaller user base. The result of the relatively unpopularity of Linux among average users is less options for consumers, but more options for specialist power users. That being said, there's still a huge push for Linux adoption due to the massive potential of its admirable open source nature. Dark mode. GNU or Linux isn't so bad in this regard either, as its themes set up on the likes of Ubuntu make changing these quite easy, although there's additional steps to get it to work quite as well as Mac OS. Windows and Linux users may have to resort to third-party color alteration programs like Flux to protect their vision. All these operating systems have their own pros and cons. It depends on the user and their choices and preferences of what they expect from the operating system. Windows can be used for playing games. Linux can be used by programmers and people who are interested in graphics can use Mac.